Welcome, brave souls, to the chilling depths of horror and detail. Today we are going to share scary Wendigo horror stories. First story. The time I saw a Wendigo. First things first, this happened to me when I was around 10. I've lived in Idaho all my life and spent a lot of time outside or in the wilderness as a kid. My grandparents would take me camping and my older brother, and I would always hike up whatever trails we could find to get a view of the sunset. On one of these occasions, something terrifying happened. We were up at a campsite I only know as Warm River, the river there never freezes over. And my brother and I were on a regular evening hike. There was an old tunnel bored through the mountain at one part of the trail, probably an old train tunnel, and we were walking through it when I heard something I'll never forget. After walking through probably 2/3 of the way through the tunnel, I heard a terrible screech at the end we entered through. The screech wasn't like anything I've heard before. I've heard the screams of animals on dark and windy nights. I even think I've heard Bigfoot calls a few times, but never the metallic, grinding screech I heard that day. The point is, whatever the sound was, it did not sound natural in any capacity. I probably jumped 5 feet in the air when I heard it, and my brother shouted a few choice curses before shooing me quickly to the exit of the tunnel. At this point, my brother decided we should just continue walking and head back after whatever made the noise hopefully cleared out. We didn't have any firearms on us, so I was pretty upset. My brother reassured me we would be fine, and we made the walk back without incident. However, I didn't get any sleep that night. Whether it was the thing that screeched at us or just my imagination, I heard things moving around the campsite the whole night, as well as whispers echoing through the darkness outside the trailer. I woke my brother up a few times to check out what it was, but he refused each time, telling me that it was probably just other campers staying up late and enjoying themselves. The rest of the trip was pretty normal. We packed up the following day, and my life continued as normal. I was disconcerted, but chalked what happened up as a harmless event that I must have been exaggerating in retrospect. A few weeks later, I went up to Pine Basin, an old ski lodge my family rented each year for family reunions. Here I would mess around with my cousins, our favorite activities being night games. We would play hide and seek, a game called Ghosts in the Graveyard, and other games like that. On one instance, I was chosen to be the seeker for a hide and seek game. Because I was one of the younger cousin, I got a flashlight as an advantage. Normally, all the younger cousins hid close to the lodge, and the older cousins hid in the nearby trees or at the base of the nearby mountain. As I was searching near the bottom of the mountain, I heard a familiar whistle up the mountain a bit. We would always whistle as a hint at our locations. It sounded like someone was hiding way up near a tree known as the underwear tree. You can guess why. So I began trekking up toward the whistle. As I climbed closer, I got an uneasy feeling in my stomach. I continued on wearily and convinced myself that I would be fine. I hated walking in the night alone, but figured whoever I find would walk me back to the lodge. As I neared the tree, I noticed that it was deathly silent. This alerted me that something was very wrong, because you could always hear the adults having fun back at the lodge. I was anxious to hurry back, so I called out, "I found you, Scott." I thought the whistle was my older cousins. "Come back down with me." I got no reply, but I wasn't planning on waiting. As I began walking back down the path, I heard a voice call, "You almost had me," so I ran back up to investigate. I flashed my light in the branches of the tree and saw a monstrosity that was not my cousin. It looked like a poorly drawn stick figure made into a human with its emaciated figure and lifeless eyes. I remember its face looked like the skin on its head was being pulled from behind. It had torn and stretched features. As soon as I saw the creature, I screamed, dropped the flashlight, and ran back to the lodge. The entire time I ran, I was overcome by an overpowering smell, and I could hear the thing running after me. As I approached the camp, I saw a few people, my cousins, at the bottom of the mountain waiting for me. I was crying and shaking, and they took me inside. I told my dad what happened, but my cousins all said they didn't see anything following me. The adults kept us inside for the night, and I kept hearing sounds drifting in from the mountains. I never played night games after that happened, and was always terrified that my cousins wouldn't listen to my warnings. Ever since that night, I have always felt uneasy up in those mountains. I used to be really religious and figured it was a demon of some kind trying to kill me or something like that, but those mountains have never felt the same after that incident. A few years ago, the game, Until Dawn, became really popular, and I watched a walkthrough of it on YouTube. When the Wendigo first appeared in-game, I got chills down my spine. It was exactly what I saw, and I did a ton of research on them. I figure someone must have gotten snowed in at that old lodge and resorted to cannibalism, but that doesn't explain what happened at Warm River. I still hear that screech from time to time. It never occurred to me until watching Until Dawn that they might be from the same thing, and it scares the hell out of me every time. I heard it earlier tonight, and that's why I decided to finally write my story down. Second story. A story to scare my son. Son, we need to have a chat about internet safety. I slowly crumpled down onto the floor next to him. His laptop was open, and he was playing Minecraft on a public server. His eyes were locked into the action. Comments scrolled down the side of the screen in a chat box. Son, can you stop your game for a minute? He exited the world, closed the laptop, and looked up at me. Dad, is this going to be another cheesy, scary story? Why? I faked hurt feelings for a second, and then grinned at him. I thought you liked my cautionary tales? He grew up listening to my stories about children who encountered witches, ghosts, werewolves, and trolls. Like many generations of parents, I use scary stories to reinforce morals and teach lessons about safety. Single dads like me should use all the parenting tools at their disposal. He scrunched his face a little. They were fine when I was 6. But now that I'm getting older, they don't scare me anymore. They seem kind of silly. If you're going to tell a story about the internet, can you make it really, really scary? I squinted at him incredulously. He folded his arms, Dad. I'm 10 and I can handle it. Okay, I'll try. I began. Once upon a time, there was a boy named Colby. His expression indicated that he wasn't impressed with the terror of the introduction. He sighed deeply and settled in for one of Dad's cheesy stories. I continued. Colby went online and joined several children's websites. After a while, he started talking to other kids in-game and on the message boards. He made friends with another 10-year-old boy named Helper23. They liked the same video games and shows. They laughed at each other's jokes. They explored new games together. After several months of friendship, Colby gave Helper 23 6 diamonds in a game they were playing. This was a very generous gift. Colby's birthday was coming up, and Helper 23 wanted to send him a cool present in real life. Colby figured it wouldn't hurt to give Helper 23 his home address, as long as he promised not to tell it to any strangers or grown-ups. Helper 23 swore he wouldn't tell anyone else, not even his own parents, and set about mailing the package. I paused the story and asked my son, "Do you think that was a good idea?" "No," he said, shaking his head vigorously. In spite of himself, he was getting into the story. Well, neither did Colby. Colby felt guilty about giving away his home address, and his guilt began to grow and grow. By the time he put on his pajamas the next night, his guilt and fear were larger than anything else in his life. He resolved to admit the truth to his parents. The punishment would be steep, but it was worth it to have a clear conscience. He squirmed in his bed as he waited for his parents to tuck him in. My son knew the scary part was coming up. In spite of his tough talk, he leaned forward wide-eyed. I spoke quietly and deliberately. He heard all the noises of the house. The washing machine bounced around in the laundry room. Branches scraped against the brick outside his room. His baby brother cooed in the nursery, and there were some other noises he couldn't quite pinpoint. Finally, his dad's footsteps echoed down the hall. "Hey, Dad," he called out nervously. "I have something to tell you." His dad stuck his head in the doorway at a weird angle. In the darkness, his mouth didn't seem to move, and the eyes were all wrong. Yes, son, the voice was way off too. Are you okay, Dad? The boy asked. Up, sung the father in his strangely affected voice. Colby pulled his covers up defensively. Is Mom around? Here I am. Mom's head popped into the doorway below Dad's. Her voice was an unnatural falsetto. Were you about to tell us that you gave our home address to Helper 23? You shouldn't have done that. We told you never to give out personal information on the internet. She continued. He wasn't really a kid. He just pretended to be one. Do you know what he did? He came to our house, broke in, and murdered both of us, just so he could spend some time with you. A fat man in a wet jacket emerged in the child's doorway, holding the two severed heads. Colby shrieked and gasped as the man dropped the heads on the ground, unsheathed his knife, and moved into the room to work on the boy. My son screamed too. He twisted his hands defensively over his face. But we were just getting started with the story. After several hours, the boy was almost dead, and his screams had become whimpers. The killer noticed the wailing of a baby in another room and removed his knife from Colby. This was a special treat. He had never murdered a baby before and was excited about the prospect. Helper 23 left Colby to die and followed the cries through the house like a homing beacon. In the nursery, he walked to the crib, picked the baby up, and held it in his arms. He moved towards the changing table to get a better look. But as he held the baby, the crying died down. The baby looked up and smiled. Helper 23 had never held a baby, but he gently bounced it in his arms like a pro. He wiped his bloody hands on the blanket so he could stroke the baby's cheek. Hey there, sweet little guy. The beautiful rage of sadism melted into something warmer and softer. He walked out of the nursery, took the baby home, named him William, and raised him as his very own. After I finished the story, my son was visibly shaken. Between ragged staccato breaths, he stammered, "But Dad, and why name's William?" I gave him a classic dad wink and tousled his hair. "Of course it is, son." William ran up the stairs to his bedroom in a fury of sobs. But deep down, I think he liked the story. Third story. The internet is a scary place. It was supposed to be a pleasant Friday night because my roommates had gone home for the weekend and I had the place to myself. I was on the computer with a few tabs open, just jumping from link to link on Reddit. I opened up another tab and started talking to a girl I have a crush on through Facebook chat. The conversation was going well, and I was telling her she should come over tomorrow since I had the place to myself for the entire weekend. I remember telling her, "You need to sleep over tomorrow because I get scared here all by myself," winky face. The conversation proceeded in this manner with me, trying to convince her to come over, and her shying away. Then as I was awaiting her reply to one of my messages, I noticed one of my tabs reloading. I was completely focused on the conversation, so I was not using any of the other tabs. I found it a little strange, but thought nothing of it since I have visited websites where the tab reloads every so often. Then Facebook chat tells me she is writing a message, and I smile from the excitement of what her next reply would be. Suddenly, all my tabs start reloading except for my current Facebook tab. I start thinking to myself, what the fuck is going on with my computer? Curious now, I click on one of the tabs. I jump a little inside when I see myself on my computer. I must have hit something on my keyboard and turned my webcam on because there I was staring at myself. After I recover from my little fright, I notice a chat window below my webcam image. Chat 1. Did you see that? He got scared. You must have noticed by now. Chat 2. No, I don't think he even knows. We gotta find this guy and warn him somehow. Chat 3. Guys, I'm seriously freaking out. This can't be real, right? I'm gonna stop watching now. I don't even know what I'm doing here. As I continued to read these chat posts that kept flooding in, subtitles appeared on the image right below my face. They read as follows. It seems you finally noticed. Smile. The world is watching. I immediately closed my laptop and ran to lock the door. As I sat alone in my fourth-floor apartment, the silence began to sink in. I could hear a high pitch ringing in my ears, slowly growing louder and louder, as if were the terrifying music in a horror movie reaching its climax. I stood there motionless, staring at the door for what seemed like an eternity. The things that Chatbox said were playing over and over in my head. Chat 4. I'm scared, guys. Chat 5. I think he might be alone too. I feel so bad. Chat 6. He deserves it. What kind of an idiot doesn't notice his webcam is on for that long? Chat 7. The scariest part was that guy said he was going to make it look like a suicide. I was almost at the brink of tears when I hear the doorbell ring. No, I tell myself. That ring was not real, and I was right too. My brain was just starting to imagine things. Panic was sinking in. I ran from my room and locked that door as well. At this point, I wanted to call someone for help, but realized I had left my phone charging with my computer, and I was not about to leave my room. So then I just dragged myself to bed like a soulless man who has accepted his fate. I closed my eyes and stared, reciting prayers I had learned as a child. I'm not even religious, but they reminded me of my mom, my home, a place where I felt safe, and soon I fell asleep. When I awoke the next morning, I was relieved to see I was still alive. I walked to my living room where I had left my laptop and just stared at it for a good while. Knowing I had to use it again because I was in school brought back all the fear I had felt that night. I left my apartment in a hurry. I wanted to enjoy the life that was not taken from me and be as far away from a computer as possible. It's strange how things can instantly change, isn't it? The normal life I had before has now become one filled with constant paranoia. I've tried to move on and forget that dreadful night, but the tape I placed over my webcam will never let me forget. Still, things have slowly started to get back to normal. It's been about 2 weeks since that Friday night, and I have yet to tell anyone about that incident other than anyone who might be reading this. Who would believe me? I'm not sure I even believe it. Who knows? Maybe I just don't want to believe. There was a brief moment of good news during this situation. Remember that girl I told you guys about? You know, the one I have a crush on? Turns out she kind of likes me. The only problem is I met her over the internet, and she lives kind of far, so the only way I am able to see her is through video chat. Don't worry, I'm no idiot. I've seen enough horror movies to know a bad idea when I see one. So with that said, I've been video chatting with her from the computers at my library where there are a lot of people around, and only during the day. I figured there is no way that insane hacker could track me to some public computer, and even if he could, he can't kill me in front of all these witnesses. Things were going great until the girl said she wanted to strip for me on her webcam, but she couldn't do it with all those people watching. The conversation went something like this. Girl, do you ever fantasies about me being naked? Winky face me. If I said no, I'm sure you would know I would be lying. Smiley face. Girl, would you like to stop wondering and see? Me. Surprise face. Yes, please, girl. Tonight at 10, don't be late. Winky face me. Is it okay if I just watch and not use a webcam? I don't have one at home. Sad face. I lied for obvious reasons, girl. That's okay. I don't want to see the naughty things you will be doing. Winky face. See you at 10. And that was that. Soon 10 o'clock came, and I was sitting in front of my computer with the tape on the webcam in my empty fourth-floor apartment. And so it began. At first, she looked a bit nervous and even slightly scared. I reassured her I was not recording this, and thus she had nothing to worry about, and so she continued. I won't go into any details, but it was quite amazing. It was my first webcam striptease, and I just wanted to tell everyone. Unfortunately, I couldn't post this on Facebook since I have her as a friend, so the next best thing was to tell random people on Omegle. Yeah, I know, I'm kind of weird, but wouldn't you be excited if you saw your first personal striptease? Anyways, I talked to several people and had the most random conversations. I mentioned the striptease and the crazy serial killer who wanted to kill me. No one believed me. Looking back, now I probably shouldn't have been telling both stories at once, because each individual story is pretty crazy in and of itself. There was one person I didn't have to convince. Here is our conversation after I told him my stories. It's currently 2 a.m. Stranger, dude, I was watching the webcam show. That was the scariest thing I ever saw in my life. I'm glad to see you're alright though, Mia. I lost a lot of sleep the next couple of nights, but I'm starting to do better now, stranger. Did you call the police? You should have definitely reported this to the police, me. Nah, I didn't. I'm not sure they will believe me, or if they could even do anything about it. Besides, I talked to some random people online, and they said it was probably just some troll having fun, stranger. What if it wasn't a troll, Hugh? You could be in serious danger. What about your IP address, man? Did you even think about that? Me. What do you mean my IP address? Stranger. That guy can track you to your fourth-floor apartment in San Jose, California. As I read these last few lines, the room went cold. I froze up and couldn't move. I had my headphones on this whole time, and thus I grew paranoid that someone might have come in without me noticing. As I looked away from my computer to the front door, I was relieved to see I had locked the door. Still, I removed my headphones in an attempt to hear anyone who might have snuck into my apartment. Silence. Nothing but silence. Can silence grow louder? I know by definition that would make no sense, but if only you could hear what I heard or the lack of what I didn't hear. I feel as if I'm starting to go insane. My thoughts seem so loud in my mind, and I just wanted to tell me brain to shut up and focus on hearing the slightest sound. And then it happened. Pop! The loudest pop I ever heard in my life. A gunshot to the chest ends the life of Julian Tom Hunter, the newspapers would read. But no. Once again, my imagination had got the best of me, and that pop I heard was simply the sound of water bottle expanding back to its regular shape. This struck a bit of courage in me. It's time to stop being a coward. I started talking to the stranger on Omegle again. Me. How do you know where I live? Explain yourself, stranger, I told you. The guy tracked you down with your IP address and posted it on the web show. The internet is a scary place. The internet is a scary place. I don't think any words have ever struck me as intensely as these words spoken by some random stranger I just met online. Me, I got to go, I don't feel very good. Stranger. KK. It was nice talking to you. Good night. Me, good night. It's strange. It was supposed to be a very simple night just talking to strangers, and maybe it might have been if I closed my browser a lot sooner. Stranger. Wait, I almost forgot. Me, what is it? Stranger, smile, the world is watching. Fourth story. WENDIGO. It all began almost a year ago when I went through my girlfriend's computer after she began acting odd. Initially, I thought she was cheating on me, but what I found, it was worse. It's been months since we finally put that hell behind us, but I still feel uneasy at night. Almost 1 year ago, my girlfriend was kidnapped, and the police had no luck with the case. I moved in with my two friends, Reagan and Jim. My girlfriend began sending me weird texts, and we all got scared. One night, Reagan and Jim went to the movies and didn't come back. A week after their disappearance, Reagan showed up at the house, bloodied and naked. She told me about how she and Jim were drugged. She told me how she was kept in a basement, and how she was raped. She told me she saw another girl in that basement. I knew it. I knew it was Victoria. 2 days after Reagan got home, we set off to find this house of horror. After she told me everything that happened to her, she told me she knew where she was being kept. I have one distinct memory while being transported. A stop sign. It had a cross street on it. I read it. Whitney Ranch and Patrick Lane. She paused for a moment before continuing. The basement wall was all brick. All the houses around here are made of stucco. I bet it sticks out like a sore thumb. I was skeptical. A kidnapper wants to blend in. Whatever the fuck this thing, or this guy is, he's not holed up in some brick mansion. Why not? She asked. How many weird-ass houses do you see every day you drive? Do you barge in there demanding to know if there are any prisoners in the basement? Shit, let's go there and fuck this guy up, right? You're probably thinking that we should just call the police. The thing is, the last time I called the police, I found a severed finger in my house. The next time I called the police, Reagan and Jim were kidnapped. When I called the police again, Reagan was delivered to my doorstep in an absolutely disgusting condition, on the verge of death. Well, before we had our talk, we found something else in the house. A whole hand, and a note. More police begets more limbs. So we went to Patrick and Whitney. We saw no mysterious brick house. We searched the surrounding neighborhood every day that week. Finally, we found it. A house made of brick, just like Reagan said. It was small, 1 story tall. It was unkempt, but that's not saying much in this neighborhood. Aside from the building material, the house looked like any other house on the block. Reagan looked nervous, and I sure as hell didn't want to be here, so I told her, you know we can still go back, right? He has Jim, Alex. Fuck. That may have been Jim's hand. That girl with me in there. That could have been Victoria. She was right. Do we knock? I asked. No. We wait. Our car was parked on the other side of the road adjacent to the house. We waited and waited. Reagan assured me that the kidnapper, a man who called himself Wendigo, left the home at least once a day. We watched the place in shifts during nightfall. Finally, around 4 a.m., the front door opened. I shook Reagan awake. Someone walked out of the house. A tall man. The guy had to be at the very least 7 feet tall. He was skinny, and he was wearing a tuxedo. It was ripped and ragged. Holy shit, I said. He's just like you described. He's even wearing that weird fucking sack on his head. He locked his door and looked around. We ducked under the windows. Slowly, I crept up. He was gone. He'd leave for hours at a time. So now is our chance, Reagan said. I was about to unlock the door when something hit the car with a loud thud. Shit, I screamed. My windshield was cracked, and it took a second to process what had hit it. It was a fucking human head, horribly disfigured, pieces of it missing. I turned on the car and was ready to gun it when I heard glass break and Reagan scream. She was being pulled out of the passenger window. Just drive, damn it. She kept screaming at me to gun it, but I knew if I drove right now, she would either be pulled out or have her back broken. I opened my door and circled around the car. We had no weapons on us, since our plan was to sneak in and call the police from the inside after finding Victoria and Jim. I was about to tackle the guy, but I just stood there. This was no normal guy. His hands were blood-soaked, his nails long and sharp. His movements were erratic and jerky. He pulled Reagan out of the window and tossed her at a nearby wall. She blacked out. "What the are you?" I asked. At least I think I asked. I don't remember if I spoke at all. I was so terrified. "I do not want her. She is filthy," he said. His voice was raspy and low. He stretched out random syllables and would stumble mid-word as well. "I want clean ones. Only..." I turned around and ran, straight into his house. I heard his footsteps behind me, erratic as hell. Thud, 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 thud. I turned my head to see how far away he was. I had a few seconds on him, which normally would have comforted me, but the way he ran. His legs were spread wide, and he took gigantic steps, almost like leaps, and flailed his arms. It would almost be goofy if it weren't for that inhuman speed. My lead was quickly disappearing. Then I remembered he locked his door. Well, shit. And here comes this fucking psychopath running at me at full speed. So I turned around and stood there like an idiot. Right before he tackled me, I dove out of the way. He hit the door and fell to the ground. I started kicking him, and he was screaming. I saw a metal rod nearby, grabbed it, and smashed him over the face. He stopped moving. I should have decapitated the piece of shit, but Victoria and Jim could have been dying that very moment. I decided to call the police. I found his keys and opened the door. I immediately took out my phone to dial the cops. No reception, typical fucking Sprint. I frantically walked around the place looking for the basement door, checking my phone the whole time. I opened a few doors and found nothing. His house was eerily normal. Finally, 2 bars. I dialed 911 and simultaneously opened a door. Holy fucking shit. I stepped inside before I realized where I was. The smell was putrid, and it was terrifyingly cold. It was a fucking walk-in refrigerator. No shelves, no storage, just an empty and cold room with vents. And a floor covered in meat. Human meat. In some corners it looked like steaks, chopped up with intent. The rest of the place was just blood, body parts, and entrails. It was too late for my shoes. I stepped into what was literally an inch-high pool of coagulated blood. If it weren't for the adrenaline, I would have vomited. I closed the door and got the fuck out of there. I needed to find that basement. I looked at my phone. Call dropped. Fuck. I tried dialing again, but it wouldn't go through. Luckily, I found the basement. I ran down it and turned on the lights. The smell was putrid here as well, but it wasn't rotting meat. It was shit. Literally the smell of piss and shit. On one end of the room, I saw a bed with chains on it, bolted to the floor. Reagan's bed. I looked at the opposite end. It was Victoria. She was completely naked, covered in God knows what, rocking back and forth with her eyes wide open, staring at the wall. She was so skinny. She literally looked like a skeleton. "Babe, Vic, it's me. I'm here, and I'll get you out of here." She kept rocking back and forth slowly, in perfect rhythm. She was staring at a clock on the wall. It was broken, with the second hand repeatedly going back and forth by one interval. "Let's go," I screamed. Suddenly, she stopped moving and turned slowly towards me, her eyes still wide. She wasn't blinking. She stared right at me. No, it looked like she was staring through me. Her jaw opened, far beyond the point where it should have. I heard bones cracking, and she bared her teeth. I didn't have time for this shit. I ran to get her. I tripped, and I blacked out. I wish I could say this story had a hero's ending, but it didn't. I was lucky. Very lucky. The police traced the call, I guess, and got to me. We all woke up in the hospital. They didn't find this Wendigo psychopath, but they're searching for him. They didn't find Jim either. A horrifying thought went through my mind, and I asked them about that meat fridge. They said it would take them months to run all that DNA, and most of it would be unreliable due to the cross-contamination. Reagan and I were fine, but Victoria was in poor shape. We visited her at the hospital every day for months since then. The police department stationed an officer by her door during the night for her safety. I thought that was great of them. The guy was real nice too. Kept her company and genuinely seemed to care about her condition. I wondered if he would be able to protect her if that psychopath showed up again. He was tall as hell and had a gun. I couldn't complain, I guess. I've tried talking about the case with the cop before, but every time he would tell me there was nothing he could tell me. For some reason, I trusted him. Heck, I still do. I had so many unanswered questions about everything, but every time I'd think about asking one, I felt as though I didn't need to. To be honest, I kind of stopped caring about all this anyway. I've moved on, you could say. So much so, I'm not even going to bother to proofread this post. Usually I'd comb through it several times to make sure I didn't make any glaring errors, but I'm just so tired. I need rest. Victoria is still in the hospital, and her condition doesn't seem to be improving that much, but there is always hope. Reagan and I will be waiting for her when she's better. Fifth story. Scary night at Grandma's. My grandma's house was built in the year 1848. It is in a small town in Indiana. It was built by a doctor that would give runaway slaves medical treatment. A tunnel ran under the city, and it ended at my grandma's house. The house had many owners over the years, and of course I grew up next door to this house. One night, I was staying in the house. I was staying upstairs in one of the 3 bedrooms. This particular bedroom happened to be in between the other 2 rooms. We all called it the middle bedroom. As I was laying there trying to fall asleep, I started hearing these footsteps slowly walking up the stairs. You could hear each step and guess roughly where on the stairs the person was just by the sound of the steps. As I heard the sound of the final step being placed onto the floor of the second story, there was a short pause. I could hear the steps turning left, stepping towards the first bedroom. Once I heard the steps reach that bedroom, there was a short pause. I heard the steps coming towards my room. I was fully expecting to see Grandma, because I thought she was coming to check on me. As the sound of the footsteps passed my room, I didn't see anyone. The steps just continued past my room, heading down to the last bedroom. As the steps reached the last bedroom, there was another slight pause. Then I heard the steps turn around and make their way back towards me. This time I made sure to pay close attention because I felt a little spooked that I somehow missed my grandma. As the steps passed by my room again, it was obvious that nobody was there. This wasn't Grandma coming to check on me. This had to be a ghost. I put my head under the blanket to hide myself. The footsteps continued to walk back and forth down the hallway, always stopping and turning around to patrol the hallway like a military guard. Every couple of passes, I would peek out from under the blankets to see if I could see anyone. Nobody was to be seen. I thought about just getting up to look in the hallway, but I didn't have the courage. I decided my safest bet was to hide under the blankets and hope that whatever it was didn't notice me laying there in bed. I have never been so terrified in my life. I felt helpless, too scared to get up, too frightened to scream out for help. So I just continued to lay there hiding under my blanket. When the first light of dawn started coming through the windows, the footsteps stopped. I laid in bed, listening so hard that I could hear my heart beating. After 20 or 30 minutes of silence, I got up enough courage to jump out of bed. I ran downstairs as fast as I could, ran out the door and across the street to my house. I didn't tell anyone about what happened to me. I didn't think anyone would believe me. A few weeks later, my aunt who grew up in that house asked me if I ever stayed there overnight. When I told her yes, she told me about how she would hear footsteps patrolling the hallway at night when she was growing up in that house. She said the ghost is called Mr. Sellers. A few years later, my cousin and I were snooping around in a closet upstairs. We found this old 1800s-style photograph. In the photograph was a man. On the back of the photograph was handwritten Mr. Sellers. Since this house was owned by my grandmother and it was right across the street, I spent a lot of time there. This wasn't the only paranormal thing to happen there, but it was the first paranormal experience to happen to me. And it was the inspiration for me to start Brave the Basement. Sixth story. The Wendigo became my friend. I visited my parents' cabin by the lake months ago. It's not something I like to talk about. I lost some friends up there, gained one very important friend. A mentor, you could say. And I had every intention of having a fun, carefree trip. I guess in some ways I did. So many memories in such a short period of time, too. The sweet smells of people I never noticed before. You go by most people, and what do you smell? Some bullshit Old Spice or Axe spray of some loser trying to pick up a girl. But humans are so much more than these modern smells. They can smell like pine trees, fear and hatred, confusion, and complete terror. There's a whole universe of sweet smells out there that most people miss. I didn't discover this until my trip to the lake. For the first day, everything went like I expected. My girlfriend and a couple of friends were having fun hiking and camping out. We were all having a blast until the rainstorm hit. I've never seen so much rain in my life. It came down in sheets, and we barely made it back to the cabin. Kevin tripped and fell. Bobby yelped and said he wanted to go home. My girlfriend made it back to the cabin first. She held the door open for everyone else. Once inside, we made sure all the windows were locked to prevent water from coming in. Trouble was the roof started to leak. We lit candles because there was no electricity. Kevin said, "We're all going to drown." "Calm down, Kevin," my girlfriend replied. "It will take months for the cabin to fill up at this rate. We're going to be fine." Kevin was completely right, except water wouldn't be his demise. Bobby didn't say much. He looked like a scared child in his corner, and he leaned forward on a rickety chair, biting his nails. We were all lost in our own thoughts. Especially me, I think. I was having thoughts I had never experienced before, thoughts of devouring. of devouring everyone in the room in a rush of blood and destruction of the flesh. I even started to look at my girlfriend that way, which worried me. They were all trapped here, my girlfriend, Bobby, and Kevin. The rain was coming down even harder, and this little group had nowhere to go. They were completely at my mercy, and I couldn't be happier about this fact. Of course, one had to be strategic. I told them I was tired from the ride up here. I got up, kissed my girlfriend on the cheek, and went to my room. It was the largest in the cabin, and I had it all to myself. As I lay in bed, I felt something deliciously dark take over. I knew without having to confirm with some meaningless scientific instrument, the Wendigo inhabited the room along with me. "Hello, Jason. How are you feeling today?" the Wendigo asked. Its voice was gravelly, a little off-kilter. "Okay," I responded. "A little down. Could it be that you have a craving for flesh?" I thought about his question, really thought about it. Some philosophers considered suicide to be the greatest philosophical question, but I disagreed. The human action most on my mind was whether or not to rend flesh from bone. The horned thing stared at me from across the room with piercing hollow eye sockets. I felt a feeling which seemed so lush and dangerous that I knew it wasn't good for me. I knew civilization was a sham, an abyss of houses, roads, and stop signs layered with bureaucracy and hazy ambitions to reach its peak. Illusions. "I'm glad you've come to see the light," the Wendigo said. I stood up, joints stiff, head swimming, but not in a bad way, in a pleasant I'm drunk and shouldn't be driving sort of way. What happened next I don't really like to talk about. It felt good though. I killed Kevin out back with an axe he used for chopping wood. And Bobby? Death by kitchen knife. I ate them both. I picked their bones clean, leaving them so bare and white you could put them on display in a museum. My girlfriend looked at me with such unbelievable horror that I knew I couldn't devour her like I did Kevin and Bobby. I ran away, into the woods. I've killed and devoured so many things in the wilderness that I've lost count. After the cabin massacre, I lived in a cave in the woods for a couple of weeks, maybe a month. The Wendigo would visit me, tell me tales of days long gone. I'd stare into its hollow eyes, get a fuzzy feeling, and I'd have to go on the hunt again. So for a while, the Wendigo became my friend. I was sad and deflated when it was all over. I'm back in the abyss of houses again, trying to think of an ambition that would excite me as much as what I did in the woods that day. Nothing yet. There's not even the thrill of getting caught. I know the Wendigo will protect me, erase any evidence of my dirty deeds. I have faith in that. 7th story. My dad sold my soul to the devil. Yup, just about as crazy as the title sounds. My dad is what they call a macho man. All he wanted was sons. He lived and breathed for another Keller boy. Naturally, when my older brother was born, he was overjoyed. 3 years later, he begged my mom to have another son. When he found out we were twins, he was excited to have 3 sons. So when my brother and I came out, and he saw that I was a girl, he was despaired. I've always been his least favorite kid, and he never tried to hide it. While he named my brothers Anthony and David, which mean priceless and beloved respectfully, he named me Lilith, which literally means night monster. While my brothers and mom tried to soften that direct punch to the gut by calling me Lily, he insisted on us all calling me Lilith so I could feel the disappointment that he felt the day I was born. Clearly him and my mom did not stay married, and quite unfortunately he signed for full custody when Anthony was 5 and David and I too. Things just got worse from there. If he took Anthony and David out to eat or to see a movie, I was to stay home. He spent all his time playing sports with my brothers and wouldn't let me join even though I, as a girl, actually showed a genuine interest in what he was doing with my brothers. When I was 4, Dad got cancer. And from what I heard, it was supposed to be terminal. That's where the title of this story comes into play. Yup, he made a deal with Satan. 15 more years of life if he sold one of his children's souls. And big surprise, he chose me. So once I die, it's off to hell, no matter how little I sin or how much I pray. The first time I remember something happening to me was about a month after my dad made that deal. I was in my tiny, cramped room, trying to sleep on a bed I outgrew years ago, while my brothers and dad watched a movie downstairs when I saw it. This thing in my closet, it was pale, with gaunt, sunken eyes and a gaping mouth. Its long and bony fingers wrapped around my closet door. There was no question that this thing was a demon. I immediately cried for my dad, who stormed up the stairs and gave me a proper beating for interrupting his movie night with his kids. After that, he called me a little girl for crying and locked me in my room. As I cried all that night, the demon simply watched me from the closet, unmoving. Demons watching me were pretty normal from then on. Sometimes it would be the pale, gaunt thing in my closet, other times a dark figure hovering over my bed. And on bad nights, a horned figure with glowing red eyes would stare at me, taunting me through the window. After a while, I stopped being scared of them. One night when I was 9, the gaunt creature was back in my closet, staring at me while I read. He began to make this really weird growling noise, to which I shushed him. He then did something he never did before. While he would occasionally wrap his hand around my slightly ajar door, he never actually came out of my closet. Until that night, in one swift movement, he tore open my closet door and stood up fully, revealing he was taller than the ceiling itself. He bent his neck in an abnormal way to fit under the roof. I rightfully should have been shitting my pants at this moment, but for some reason, I just wasn't that scared. We locked eyes for a while, which was more awkward than scary, so I just went back to reading my book. He just looked at me curiously for a while, until my dad decided he wanted to be a horrible person again, and threw open my door to yell at me for something or other. The entire time the demon just watched. Thankfully, my dad left after slapping me across the face, but I was crying again for the rest of the night. The demon, who now looked at me with something more than curiosity, looked back at my closed door, trying to see my dad. As I did nothing but sob, the demon just sat down beside my bed, towering over me. Neither of us looked at each other the rest of the night. I cried while he just stared off in the distance, but I wasn't alone, and that was all I cared about. From then on, things changed. I wasn't just not scared of the demons, I welcomed them, especially the gaunt-looking one who sat by me that night. He would sit with me whenever my dad was bad to me, or whenever I had boy troubles at school. He never talked at me and barely ever looked at me, but all I cared about was that he was there for me. That I even gave him a name. Papa. I remember this one night. I was 14 and upset because Jacob, the boy I liked, didn't invite me to the Valentine's dance at our school. On top of that, my dad had gotten into one of his moods and had thrown a chair at me. When I ran into my room, I was almost relieved to see Papa crouched by the closet. Papa! I cried, running to him. It was stupid, I know. I was calling a literal demon Papa, but I had nobody else. He was the only one who had ever shown me any sympathy. At first he stepped back, but as I cried even harder, he looked at me in the eyes. Maybe for the first time since that night, he stepped out of the closet. Then he did something surprising. He hugged me back. As I felt his icy cold hands wrap around me, I should have been terrified, but I was filled with love. Love for finally finding a dad who loved me. But one night, as I was reading To Kill a Mockingbird for my school project, I made a mistake. Papa looked curious, so I decided to read out loud to him. I guess I made too much noise, though, because David opened my door. Lilith, who the hell are you? What the fuck is that? He screamed, and my dad came rushing up. Papa couldn't hide in time, and now Anthony, David, and my dad all stared him down. He stood up, revealing his giant stature, and David began to cry, while Anthony froze in place, and my dad ran off to get a vial of holy water he had kept by his bed ever since the deal was made. As I tried to run away with Papa, he stopped me and shook his head. We both knew it was too late. I cried as I hugged him goodbye, and as my dad approached us with the holy water and sprayed it on Papa, he let out a blood-curdling screech that could have been heard across the country. I watched in horror as Papa, who had stayed by my side all these years, faded to nothingness. There, Dad said, "It can't hurt us anymore, sons." he said, embracing David and Anthony in a hug. I just laid over Papa's lifeless body, uncontrollably sobbing. We were all so caught up in our own worlds we didn't notice something come up behind us. He was large, even bigger than Papa, and had two large horns, a goat's head, and a large stick in his hand. Dad turned around slowly, looking to this thing as he glared down at my abuser. Your Majesty, I dashed. We had a deal, Stanley. I granted you 15 more years of life, on 2 conditions. 2. It boomed, and I noticed David had wet himself. It was a misunderstanding, sir, my daughter dashed. You were granted 15 more years of life, on the conditions that I get your daughter upon her death, and you never harm anyone ever again. Do you understand? It asked. Yes, and I haven't. Promise? The creature laughed. First you break a promise, and now you lie? To his satanic majesty himself? Seeing you have not only harmed your daughter her entire life, but have killed one of my best minions, you have broken my trust. I'm breaking off the deal. My dad got down on his knees. And oh, please, I'll do anything, he begged. Satan looked at me. There is one way. If Lilith, your daughter and the one you cursed, forgives you, I will set you free, and you will live the rest of your life. My dad slowly turned to me and put on a smile. Hey, Lily, what about it? Look at me. I'm your dad. Your Papa. I raised you. Don't you love me? I'm your dad, for fuck's sake, he said, getting more agitated as I stared at him. It's up to you, Lilith, Satan said. I looked at Papa's body on the floor, then back to my dad. Come on, you gonna believe Satan or your dear old dad? My dad said, pleading to me. I glared at him. My dad is dead, bitch. You killed him. I said, I don't forgive you. And with that, Satan dragged my dad down to the netherworld, my brothers and I hearing his screams until it was far away enough that it faded away to where he could never hurt me again. As my brothers cried in the loss of their dad, I walked back to Papa on the ground and kissed his forehead. Goodbye, Papa. Thank you. 8th story. I wrote the most terrifying story ever. It's probably too dangerous to read. I've wanted to be a horror writer since I first blew through 60 Goosebumps books in elementary school. As I got older, my interest quickly shifted to Christopher Pike and then Stephen King and Dean Koontz. At first, my parents were thrilled that I was reading it all, but when my mom started catching on to exactly what I was reading, she got worried. You're going to give yourself nightmares, she said, but I basically laughed in her face. Nothing scared me. It was all silly. Even Pennywise in it or Randall Flagg in The Stand just seemed like cartoons to me. At some point, I decided the only way to discover something genuinely scary was to write it myself. Of course, I went through all of the common pitfalls of a rookie writer, copying my idols, generating page after page of drivel. It wasn't until college that I actually started coming up with stories that didn't stink like hot garbage. Finally, when I was a senior, I wrote the first one that I was actually proud of. It was about a space station that ran out of food and rescue is years away. The chief scientist calculates that he'll have just enough calories to make it in time if he eats the rest of the crew. I was so excited to finally show it to someone that I emailed it to my girlfriend and asked her to tell me what she thought. I sent the email and then drove over to her place so I could hear her reaction in person. When I got there, she was in tears. I asked her if she liked the story, and she said that she couldn't even look at me, that I was disgusting. I told her to relax. It was just a story after all, but she just started screaming that there was something wrong with me and that I needed to get out of her house right then. It was sad to lose her, but it didn't change how I felt about the story. I ended up sending it to a few magazines, but I didn't hear back. I guess I figured that it wasn't scary enough. And if I'm going to be honest, a bit of self-doubt was beginning to creep in. Maybe there was something wrong with me. Maybe some kind of gauge had broken inside of me, such that my whole concept of terror was different from the rest of humanity. Maybe I should just stop writing and get an office job. A couple of months after that, I was lying awake at night when I felt something heavy on my chest. I looked down to see what was sitting there, but all I could make out was a shadow. "You're close," it said. "You can't hold back now." I woke up gasping. Of course, I took it as a sign. I started my next story that very morning, and if I'm going to be honest, this one felt different than anything I'd written before. It was like the monster I was writing about was embracing me from behind, curling its fingers around mine, guiding them on the keyboard. Then, it was like I blinked and the whole thing was already written out on the page, a couple thousand words. I scrolled up in my doc, and it was like I was reading it for the first time. And as I went, I actually felt my body tensing, my pulse quickening, all of the stuff I'd read about in novels, but never actually experienced myself. I was actually afraid. Shaking, I quickly shut my computer screen. It was immediately apparent to me that I'd written a story scarier than anything I'd ever read. And since I'd read practically everything, there was a good chance it was the scariest story ever created. My first thought was to post it somewhere online for maximum exposure. I was just about to post it online when I hesitated. Maybe it would be better to run it by a few test readers first. I hadn't even really done a proper grammar check after all. That afternoon, I went to my parents' house with a few printouts of the story. My parents were glad to see me, of course, but a little wary of reading my story. They exchanged a funny look, but ultimately agreed to give it a look. I waited downstairs as they each went to their upstairs study to read in the coziest chairs. The seconds ticked by painfully. I couldn't wait to hear what they thought. I imagined their pride as they realized that not only was their son a real writer, but that he'd actually written the scariest story ever. And then I heard a shattering of glass, followed by a thump. I ran outside to find my mother's body in a heap surrounded by fragments of the upstairs window, as well as my manuscript pages. I ran to her, trying to shake her awake, but found her completely lifeless. I was about to call 911 when I looked up and saw my father standing at the same window. He was shaking with fear as he picked a piece of broken glass from the window and ran it across his throat. Then, as the blood trickled down his neck, he fell lifelessly down, landing with a thump on top of my mom. I guess I should have been scared, but if I'm going to be honest, the sight of my dead parents was practically a walk in the park compared to the story. I felt sad seeing them like that, but not like I needed to scream bloody murder or anything. A bloody page blew out from under my mother's corpse and clung to my chest. I pulled it slowly off my body, and as I did, I reread one of the sentences. A chill ran through me. My whole body was shaking, and I felt on my knees. I felt like the words were looking at me, seeing something deep and rotten inside. I felt like the words would eat me down to my disgusting bones. I felt that if I read even one more word, I'd have the same uncontrollable urge they felt, that I'd want to walk upstairs and leap from that very same window. And even though I knew the story was the best, that it was the scariest, and that it was mine, I didn't want to read it anymore. That was all a couple of weeks ago. Since then, I've been trying to decide what to do about the story. Part of me knows that if I put it out there, people would finally recognize my talent. Maybe I'd be getting calls of congratulations from King and Pike and R.L. Stine and all my idols, praising my talent, begging me to write more. Or maybe a bunch of people would end up like my parents. But if I'm going to be honest, the main thing stopping me from posting it is the risk. The risk that I'd accidentally read a couple of sentences and feel the fear again, that inescapable dark bubbling from somewhere deep and unknowable. It's that thing I thought I was chasing all along, but when I finally found it, I broke. I'm working on my mom's laptop for now, so I don't have to open the one with the story. But I know I can't just let it sit there forever, unread. It would be like keeping the Mona Lisa in a dark basement, away from all human eyes, right? Ninth story. Hi everyone. My name is Ava, and yesterday was my 8th birthday. Hi everyone, my name is Ava Wayne, and today I am 8 years old. Smiley face. I was 8 yesterday for the first time, but now I am even older. I got to use my mom's computer today, but SHH don't tell her. Last night when my dad came home from work, he brought me a big chocolate cake with vanilla frosting that had my name on it, and I got to blow out the candles. I didn't even have to eat dinner first. It was the best day, even though I didn't have a party. It doesn't matter though, because I've never had a party before. My mom and dad say that I'm not allowed because we can't have any other people in the house. They lie and tell me that it's because we live too far away, but I know that it is because of my friend Evie who lives with us. Evie looks exactly like me, and we are like sisters. She is not really my sister though. We just say that. Evie can do this really cool trick where she can move my arms and say things in my voice. Sometimes it is a little bit annoying, but she's my friend, so it's okay. My mom and dad don't like Evie though, and this makes her very mad. My mom says that Evie needs help, and we have to see someone for her. I don't know what she means, but Evie says that my mom is a liar, and I don't like telling Evie that she is wrong. My dad gets really mad and yells at Evie to stop and to shut up and leave me alone, but that just makes her more mad. I've tried to tell him to stop, but he doesn't listen. Yesterday when my dad brought home the cake, he asked me if I liked it, and I told him yes, and that Evie liked it too. He got really mad, but my mom told him that it was not the time, and he didn't say anything about her. When they lit the candles and told me to make a wish, I didn't know what to wish for. I kind of wanted some new paint so that I could make more paintings for my room, but I also wanted a puppy or some new toys. Mostly I wanted to wish for Evie to stay, but Evie thought that was a stupid wish because she says she's always going to be with me forever, so I didn't wish for that. I asked Evie what else I should wish for, and my dad got really mad and told me to just make a wish already, because this was none of Evie's business. That made me a little bit sad because it was Evie's business and she was with us, and that was rude of him to yell at her like that. My mom said it was okay, but Dad said that it was not normal. Evie was also getting mad because Dad said she wasn't normal. Everyone was just mad, and I almost cried, but then Evie told me to just make my wish because she would make any of my wishes come true. I thought about it really hard, but then Mom told me to hurry up or else the cake was going to get ruined. So I finally decided to wish for my parents to leave Evie alone and be nice to her. Then I blew out the candles, and my mom clapped, but I could tell that my dad was still mad. We ate cake anyway, but I didn't ask if Evie could have some because it was finally a good time. We finished the entire cake all by ourselves, and I was even allowed to have 2 whole pieces. It was awesome. Last night, I had a really scary nightmare that I stabbed my mom and my dad in their bed when they were asleep. It was really scary, and I woke up and cried, but I don't think they heard me because no one came to check on me. Only Evie was there, and she said it was okay. When it was morning, I got up, but my mom didn't make any breakfast, and she didn't answer when I was yelling for her. Evie says that they are still asleep and that I shouldn't go up to their room, so I didn't. Evie helped me to make breakfast. She showed me how to make a burrito with eggs and some chicken that she bought. It was really messy because Evie said that it was fresh meat that had just been killed. I already know that they kill animals for food because my grandpa has a farm and I had seen them make a turkey before, so I knew that it was very messy. After I ate, Evie said that we could watch TV. She said that I didn't even have to clean up because Mom and Dad weren't going to even see it. She told me that she made my wish come true and that they weren't going to be mad at us anymore, and they weren't going to yell at us either. Evie says that now we can do whatever we want. I had ice cream and I watched cartoons all morning instead of going to school, and when the phone rang and the school called, Evie talked to them and she sounded just like my mom. She told them that I was sick, and the lady believed her. It was so fun, and I didn't even know that she could do that. Evie let me use my mom's laptop because she says she knows the password. She told me I could write on here like a diary and post it so other people could read it. Isn't that so cool? I wonder who is reading this, haha, smiley face. Evie just made me lunch, and it was a sandwich with meat again. I don't eat this much meat because my mom likes for me to eat my veggies, but Evie says that mom is not the boss anymore, so I can eat whatever I want. I had a lot of chips and my tummy started to hurt, and I really wanted my mom, but Evie said that it was okay and she could make it feel better. Evie told me to take a nap, and so I did, but I had another scary dream that I was cutting up mom and dad because Evie was making me. When I woke up, Evie said it was just a dream because mom and dad were still asleep upstairs. I want to go and see them, but Evie says I can't or else it will ruin the wish, and we will get in big trouble for making a mess and eating junk. I think I'm going to go play hide and seek with Evie now. Smiley face. 10th story. Wendigo. My best friend is a Wendigo. Madison and I were lounging in the grass of the backyard enjoying the last of the late autumn sun. She was busy playing with her toys, throwing them about as if she were sprinkling snowflakes. I, on the hand, was comfortable in my mom's lounge chair, trying to finish this book I kept putting off. It's Wendigo, not Wendigo. A dingo is a dog in Australia. I didn't take my eyes off the page. Jason ran for the knife, but tripped over his own feet, falling desperately onto the sand. But he is one. Madison's whiny 7-year-old voice drew my gaze. She was a pretty child with chestnut hair. Big cheeks and even bigger eyes made her popular amongst her peers and their mothers. I don't know where she got those genes from. I was her big sister, and I was never so cute. There was always something awkward about my face. Maybe it was the thin nose or the puckered eyes. I kept to myself mostly, choosing to live in fiction rather than reality. Where did you hear that word? I asked, scanning the page one more time. Jason's taut muscles pushed against the creature, locked in a struggle he may never escape from. Madison shrugged. I think you said it one time. About a book you were reading? I laughed. Oh yeah, that terrible fake Native American romance book. God, what was it called? I recounted the piles of books that littered my room. The Wendigo's Yearning, I said finally. What a trashy book. What is a Wendigo? Madison rose from the ground, brushing off her dress. She came over to me and put her little hand on my arm. I quickly finished my paragraph before setting the book down. It was all over. Jason would never breathe in the summer air again. Well, a Wendigo is a bad spirit. Like a monster. It wants to eat people. Madison frowned. So it's not nice? I raised my eyebrows. No, Madison. It is not nice. It looks like a skeleton, almost really thin and always hungry. It eats humans because it wants to be full. But it can never be full. So it just keeps eating and eating. Madison took her hand off my arm and tapped it against her head. Does it like to play? You're being weird. I picked my book up again. The creature descended upon Jason's hard body, ripping the flesh away like newspaper. Well, I think you're wrong. Wendigos don't eat people. He didn't eat me. Jason's blood tasted sweet as the creature licked clean his insides. I rolled my eyes. You don't know a Wendigo. And your best friend is a little boy, not a monster. He used to be a little boy, she replied, turning away from me and walking towards the woods that lay beyond our yard. Madison, come back. The creature slurped down Jason's intestines. She didn't listen to me. I sighed. I'll tell Mom you went in the woods. As the creature gnawed on the final bone, it began to grow taller. Madison ignored me. When she reached the tree-line, I groaned and got up. The creature would only become bigger as it ate. Madison, you're going to be in big trouble. I bet Mom will make you go to bed without dinner. She turned around, now shouldered by trees. I want you to meet him. Then you'll see. She held her hand out to side and grabbed a hold of the nearest tree branch. I was going to respond when I realized that the branch was also holding on to her. As I neared them, it was clear that this was no tree at all. It was a tall creature, extremely thin and bony, matching the color of the foliage. Its face was turned down, but I could see saliva-dripping teeth. Madison just smiled. This is my Wendigo, I knew I should have ran to her, but instead I tore back towards the house. I could hear large steps behind me, but I didn't stop. I opened and slammed the door, locking it. My breath was heavy. I looked out the window and saw Madison still holding its hand as they moved closer and closer. My mom entered the room. "What are you doing?" she asked sweetly. "It's Madison. She is with, I don't know, a monster." My mom peered out the window. She smiled and winked at me. "That's just her Wendigo. Don't worry, honey, he's harmless." She turned to go back to whatever she was doing, and I gasped in horror. The entire backside of her torso had been hollowed out, licked clean, yet she still walked away, leaving a small mucus trail as it dripped from her exposed flesh. Madison was now knocking on the door, giggling. "Let us insist. My Wendigo is hungry." Thanks a lot for watching the video. Till the end, subscribe to Horror in Detail for more videos. Drop your suggestions in comment section.